رمضان يا رمضان رمضان يا رمضان رمضان يا رمضان رمضان يا رمضان.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome to In the Light of the Quran. We do an overview of the recitation for the 26th night of Ramadan, covering the first part of the 30th juz of the Holy Quran. The final juz of the Quran, the 50th juz, is often referred to as Juz Amma. And this is because that is the first word contained in that juz, and the final 36 chapters of the glorious Quran, of which 15 are recited. The first word in that surah is Amma Yatasa'alun. Most of these chapters were revealed during the Meccan period. As such, the verses are consoling to the Prophet and the believers, and there are promises that this small, seemingly insignificant community, which is standing upon the truth, will eventually grow, will eventually be strengthened, and will overcome the powers that be, and how true they turned out to be. Furthermore, the believers are advised to remain firm in what they believe, to stand by the truth, to stand for justice, to stand by goodness. And in one of the Quran's constant themes, patiently persevere in times of trials and in times of tribulations. The verses contain warnings of the consequences of evil, as well as the glad tidings for those who have faith and those who manifest their faith through good and beneficial deeds. From the reminder of the reality of judgment in Surah An-Naba, which is the news, Surah Amma Surah, and the inevitability of death in Surah An-Nazi'at, those who take life, through the impeccable standard of prophetic character referred to in Surah Abasa, reproach for frowning at the blind man Ibn Maktoum, to the signs of the last day in Takwir, the folding up, and in Fitar, and later in Shiqaq, the cleaving asunder of the heavens, and the splitting of the celestial spheres. Through all of these, from An-Naba, An-Nazi'at, Abasa, Surah Takwir, Al-Infitar, Inshiqaq, we are constantly urged to take heed. We are constantly urged to take stock of our beliefs, and we are constantly asked to evaluate our behavior and our attitudes. The reading goes on, warning us against unsavory economic practices in Surah Mutaffifin, meaning those who engage in fraudulent economic dealings. Warning against the tyranny of oppression in Surah Al-Buruj, and warning against the machinations of those who hinder truth and justice in Surah Al-Tariq. In Surah Al-A'la, the Most High, we are reminded to glorify Allah and to appreciate the Holy Quran, the final revelation. The Quran is a reminder, and those who heed its message will be successful in the hereafter. In Surah Al-A'la, it begins with a litany of praise of Allah, and reference is made to 4 dimensions in the process of divine creative activity. 1. تخليق الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى. The first one is خلق فسوى. تخليق and تسوية. تخليق means Allah brings into existence the previously non-existence. Human beings can manufacture things. We don't create things. To create something means to bring something from nothingness. We are not able to do this. We take existing matter and we manufacture with our intelligence given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the capacity afforded to us by our Creator. We can manufacture things. But actually, creating is only the work and the capacity and the ability of the divine. So takhliq, Allah is the only one that brings into existence the previously non-existent. Reference to taswiyah, another process of divine creative activity. Fashioning the created with due proportion. And Allah has created every creation not only in due proportion, but in a form ideal to its level of existence. In other words, Allah has given the bird the capacity to fly. Allah has given the fish the capacity to live in water. Human beings may not be able to survive underwater because our breathing apparatus will not allow us to live underwater in that way. But the fish can. So Allah creates each level consistent with its level of existence and granted it sufficient capacity to be able to adapt to that living condition. Taswiyah. Then there's taqdeer. Allah assigns to each creation an appropriate role and imbues it with ability consistent with its form. In other words, it circumscribes the ability. It's not only limitation, but more than that, it's empowerment. It empowers each level of creation with a degree of capacity to be able to do the taqdeer, the qudra, to do something. But within that capacity, there are limitations. Then there's hidayah. Allah grants each level of creation internal and external modes of information, which serves as guidance for natural interaction and meaningful coexistence. For human beings, the highest form of hidayah is divine guidance that comes from Allah through the agency of prophets to humanity. That began from the time of Adam and concluded with the mission of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And the hidayah that he brought to us is captured as revelation in the final divine communique, Al-Quran. In this surah, as well as Surah Ash-Shams later, the important concept of tazkiyah is highlighted. Tazkiyah is central to the upliftment and the growth and development of a person of faith. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى. Successful indeed are those involved in their purification. We read in this surah as well in Surah Ash-Shams. Linguistically, the root zakaya of the Arabic term tazkiyah implies cleansing but also development and growth. Tazkiyah in the Arabic language means purification, growth and development, and to bring the self to the height of excellence. Tazkiyatun nafs, or cleansing of the self, which is an essential part of spiritual development, is an essential feature for human beings to improve themselves. And it refers to the purification of the self from all negative and evil tendencies that may arise from weakness in human inclination towards negative things, which could appeal to our lower base desires and lead us to act and indulge inappropriately. Tazkiyatun nafs, or self-purification, is certainly rooted in spirituality. But what do we mean by spirituality? Spirituality entails the development of a heightened level of God consciousness, coupled with an increased dedication to the spirit of righteousness. Then in Surah Al-Ghashiyah, the overwhelming event, there's reprimand for those who are heedless to the message of guidance, who are uninterested in their eventual accountability. In Wal-Fajr, the dawn, Allah reminds us of the consequence of the arrogance of the oppressors of the past. That materialism should not be the objective of our lives, and whatever material advantage we have should be utilized for the benefit of the needy and the oppressed. And a reminder of our return to Allah. But the best return is those who have a nafsul mutmainnah, a soul pleased with that which pleases Allah. In Surah Al-Balad, Allah swears by the city of Makkah and invokes us to choose the uphill path of faith, manifested in action, good action. And we conclude today's reading with Surah Ash-Shams and Surah Al-Layl, bringing to the fore distinction between truth and falsehood, between good and evil. There's a call for purification of the self and connection with the divine, and the realization that the strivings and the doings of the individuals and nations are divergent as day is to night. Be on the path of guidance, on the path of the righteous. Walk in the light of goodness and guidance. Don't grapple in the darkness of ignorance, superstition, and disbelief. Shukran. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
رمضان يا رمضان رمضان يا رمضان رمضان يا